The rainforest breathes in silence, a living ocean of green, where time moves not in centuries, but in heartbeats. Somewhere beneath this ancient canopy, hidden beneath layers of forgotten earth, a secret waited, untouched, unseen, unknowable. Until now. In the limestone shadows of Kalau Cave on the island of Luzon, scientists brushed away the dust of ages and uncovered something extraordinary. Tiny, fragile bones unlike any seen before. These were not bones of the living world. They belonged to Homo luzonensis, a distant cousin in our human family tree, one that vanished before history even learned to speak. Yet even they were not alone. Deeper in the rock, deeper in the past, there were others. In the dark chambers of Taban Cave in Palawan, traces of another traveler appeared. The Taban man, modern humans standing at the dawn of human history, living nearly 47,000 years ago, when the world was still young and wild. They were not accidents of survival. They were voyagers of forgotten oceans, the first daring souls to set foot on the islands that would one day be called the Philippines. Their blood carried the silent music of Australasia, a deep song flowing through the veins of today's Negrito peoples, the Ida, the Agda, the Batak, whose faces still echo the ancient bravery of those first steps. Long before history, before kings and maps, they crossed the open sea, following stars we can no longer name, to find a new world. Back then, the Philippines were not islands, but a sprawling green bridge called Sundaland, stretching from Asia's belly into the Pacific's heart. The forests were endless, the rivers wide, and the people could walk across lands now swallowed by the restless sea. But the earth does not stay still. As the ice melted and oceans rose, the land bridges sank. The waters rose higher, day by day, until the lush pathways that once united them became cold, dark oceans. The people, families, tribes, dreamers, were marooned on isolated islands, forced to carve their futures alone, their bloodlines splitting like rivers, each branch preserving an ancient memory sealed by the sea. And through all of it, through isolation, through survival, through the forgotten storms of deep time, their legacy endured. Today, when scientists peer into the DNA of the Philippines' most ancient peoples, they find threads woven from that first daring voyage, mitochondrial lineages linked not to China, nor to India, but to the oldest dreamers of New Guinea and Australia. Proof that the first to arrive are not the first to be forgotten. They are the pulse beneath the skin of a modern people. They are the voice in the bones, the breath in the blood, the footsteps that never truly faded. This was the first secret, the first heartbeat of the Filipino people, and the beginning of a story far greater than history ever told. The night sky over the Philippine jungle hums with forgotten songs. Millions of stars flicker above, ancient witnesses to a story even older than memory. And beneath that endless sky, deep in the DNA of a few thousand souls, a secret survives, a gift from a people who no longer walk the earth. When scientists first peered into the blood of the Ida Magbukan, they weren't expecting to rewrite human history. But what they found stunned the world. Hidden inside their cells was the highest known Denisovan ancestry on the planet, even greater than that found in Papuans or Australians. The echoes of a lost human species, still alive in the veins of a modern people. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to carry the blood of the unknown? To walk the earth not just as a descendant of Homo sapiens, but as a living museum of a vanished humanity? Tens of thousands of years ago, when the first explorers set foot on the islands that would become the Philippines, they weren't alone. In the shadowed forests, in the limestone caves, there lived others, cousins, not enemies. The Denisovans. They were different, not monsters but mysteries, whose faces we will never fully reconstruct, whose stories we can only guess. And yet, their legacy was not war. It was connection. Somewhere, at the edge of a forgotten ocean, Denisovans and modern humans met. And instead of conflict, there was something else, the quiet, world-changing act of love. Families were formed, bloodlines intertwined, and deep inside the genetic code, the memory of that meeting was stitched forever. Today, when scientists study the Ida, they find that about 30 to 40% more Denisovan DNA flows through their blood than even in the farthest corners of Papua or Australia. It's not a glitch. It's a living time capsule, sealed in blood, carried for millennia across the storms of history. Imagine, you are standing in a bustling Filipino market, or watching a child laugh in a distant mountain village, and within them, flowing invisibly, is the fingerprint of a humanity that the world forgot. How much of who we are comes from ancestors we will never truly know. What dreams, what songs, what fears were carried across the waves from those ancient, silent ones into the hearts of modern Filipinos. Scientists used to believe Denisovan ancestry was limited to distant, isolated islands. But the Philippines has shattered that idea. The islands tell a different story, of meetings no one recorded, of migrations no one mapped, of a human family far richer and more tangled than any textbook ever imagined. And it makes you wonder, what other secrets are hidden, waiting quietly in the blood, in the bones of the Ida, the Agda, and other Negrito peoples? The Philippines guards something the rest of humanity has lost, a memory of a different world, a different kind of human, who shaped us without leaving a name. The gift of the Denisovans is not just science, it's a reminder that the human story is deeper, wilder, and more beautiful than we ever dared to believe. And this is only the beginning. The sound of the ocean is never just noise. It's the voice of 1,000 journeys, 1,000 forgotten dreams. And if you stand quietly on the shores of the Philippines, you might still hear it. The call of the first voyagers, whose footprints disappeared, but whose blood still whispers through time. Long before there were nations, before there were maps, ancient people sailed out into the unknown. Not in fleets of ships, not with steel and compass, but in fragile canoes stitched with hope and desperation. They crossed a world of endless blue, driven by something even science struggles to explain, the need to find what lay beyond the horizon. What must it have felt like to push out into waters that stretched forever, with no promise of land, no guarantee of survival? What stories did they tell themselves under the alien stars? The ancestors of today's Negrito peoples weren't just survivors. They were pioneers of the deep, carrying the earliest dreams of Oceania on their backs. Modern DNA studies show that these early Filipinos share a deep genetic link with the ancient peoples of Australia and New Guinea. Mitochondrial markers, threads woven through generations, connect them to the first humans who braved the southern oceans more than 50,000 years ago. Can you imagine carrying inside you the memory of a migration so old that even the mountains have forgotten it? When the seas rose and swallowed Sunderland, the ancestors of the Philippines became islands unto themselves, isolated, scattered, yet carrying within them pieces of a puzzle that stretched across half the globe. The connection was not broken. It was hidden, waiting. In the Ida, the Agda, the Mamanwa, and countless other groups, fragments of this great oceanic journey remain alive today. They are living bridges to a time before time, when the world was stitched together not by empires, but by courage. And the science confirms it. 40% of Ida mitochondrial DNA belongs to haplogroups that trace directly back to ancient New Guinea and Australia, not through later contact, but from migrations lost to memory, preserved only by blood and bone. What else lies hidden in the DNA of the islands? What other forgotten voyages sleep beneath the skin of a modern people? We often think of exploration as something new, rockets to Mars, probes beyond the solar system. But perhaps the truest explorers were those ancient sailors, who, with nothing but stars overhead and hope inside, stitched the first paths across the blue infinity. The Filipino genome is not an accident of history. It is a map, a living testimony to the oldest dreams ever dreamed across the Pacific. And the oceans are not barriers in that story. They are roads, highways built by time itself. So the next time you hear the waves crash against the shore, listen closely. You're hearing the echoes of a journey that still hasn't ended. Because inside every Filipino today, a part of that ancient ocean still sings. The wind shifts across the waters, carrying a sound almost too old to remember. It's the whisper of sails catching air, the rhythm of paddles slicing through waves, the heartbeat of a people who would change the face of the islands forever. For 1,000 years ago, a different kind of voyager appeared on the Philippine horizon. They came not from the south, but from the north, from Taiwan, with languages heavy with songs of rivers and mountains, and boats strong enough to carry the weight of whole worlds. Imagine standing on the shore, watching the first outriggers glide toward land, their sails glowing gold against the setting sun. Would you have seen them as strangers, or as the beginning of something new? The Austronesians were not conquerors. They were planters, builders, dreamers, carriers of rice, taro, pigs, and the thousand small comforts that turned survival into life. But their real legacy was something far greater. Bloodlines that would ripple across the Philippines, across Southeast Asia, and out into the wide blue Pacific. When scientists examine the DNA of modern Filipinos, they find a strong East Asian signal, not from recent migration, but from that ancient wave of Austronesian settlers. It runs deepest in the Cordilleran peoples of northern Luzon, who branched off from their Taiwanese ancestors at least 8,000 years ago, even before rice paddies greened the hillsides. Think about that. A migration so ancient that it predates farming itself. What drives people to cross oceans before they even master the fields? The Cordillerans are special. Their DNA is a rare, precious time capsule, almost untouched by later invasions, almost pure in its echo of the first Austronesian seafarers. When we look at them, we don't just see faces. We see maps. We see the very roots of the Austronesian expansion that would one day reach as far as Madagascar, Hawaii, and Easter Island. Have you ever wondered how far the human spirit can travel, if only given a boat and a dream? The early Austronesians didn't find an empty land. They met the descendants of the first settlers, the Negritos, and together, over centuries, they wove a tapestry of languages, cultures, and bloodlines that would become the foundation of modern Filipino identity. And yet, the Cordillerans remind us, there were always islands of memory, places where the past held firm against the tides of time. Today, genome studies show that all Filipino ethnic groups share more alleles, more deep genetic connections, with the Cordillerans than with any other group, even more than with the Taiwanese peoples from whom the Austronesians first came. Isn't that remarkable? That the core of Filipino identity lies not outside, but deep within, carried quietly through centuries of change? The Austronesian tide did not wash away what came before. It built upon it, layer by layer, voice by voice, heartbeat by heartbeat. And the story of their arrival is not just a story of genetics or migration. It's a story of hope, of the endless human hunger to explore, to settle, to dream across oceans. When you see a Filipino smile, speak, sing somewhere, hidden deep inside, there's a glimmer of that first boat cutting across the ancient sea, of a people chasing horizons that had no names yet. And their journey, it still continues. The ocean remembers every traveler who crossed it, and in the blood of the Filipino people, those memories are stitched like stars across a night sky. Faint, scattered, but never lost. Long after the first pioneers set foot on these islands, new waves of life kept arriving, not all at once, not in conquering armies, but in slow, secret currents that rewrote the future without erasing the past. From the southern seas came whispers of Papua and Melanesia, not just in ancient Negrito lines, but in later, unexpected migrations. Genetic clues reveal that parts of Mindanao and Sulu bear the imprint of new Papuan-related settlers, arriving after the great Austronesian tide. Can you imagine it? Another ocean crossing, another meeting of distant cousins, shaping identities in ways no history book ever recorded. But the story doesn't end there. The traders of mainland Southeast Asia, merchants from Indochina, travelers from Vietnam, the Dai peoples from southern China, left their mark too, not through conquest, but through trade, through marriage, through moments of quiet connection along coastal villages. Modern genomic studies uncover a faint Northeast Asian signal in the northern islands, Batons, coastal Luzon, proof of ancient conversations across the South China Sea. Have you ever stood at the edge of the ocean and wondered, who stood here before you, looking across the waves and dreaming of a new beginning? Even South Asia, distant across the swirling Bay of Bengal, brushed the Philippine shores. Muslim traders, Hindu merchants, centuries before Spain or America ever set their sights here, planted tiny seeds of Indian ancestry in the Sulu archipelago, among the Sama and Tausig. It wasn't just goods that moved. It was people. It was bloodlines. It was futures being stitched together by hands that never knew the maps we now draw. And while many talk about Chinese influence, Few realize it wasn't just in silks or spices. Centuries of migration from southern China infused fresh threads into the Filipino genome, woven subtly into the existing Austronesian fabric rather than replacing it. What makes a people unique? Is it purity? Or is it the way we carry 1,000 meetings, 1,000 migrations, 1,000 quiet moments of trust across generations? Filipino DNA doesn't tell the story of one people replacing another. It tells the story of layers, ancient, resilient, luminous, building upon each other like coral reefs under the waves. Each migration brought something new, not to erase, but to enrich, not to conquer, but to become part of the living, breathing mosaic of the islands. And even now, every heartbeat carries the echoes of those hidden waves, restless, powerful, eternal. The Philippines is not just a crossroads of the sea. It is a living testament that humanity's truest voyage isn't towards power or empire. It's toward connection. If you could listen closely enough, would you hear the stories carried in your own blood? The ocean does not forget, and neither should we. The ships came with crosses and cannons, with banners fluttering under the tropical sun. For more than 300 years, the Spanish Empire claimed the Philippine Islands in maps and laws, in prayers whispered over unwilling tongues. But there's a secret they never understood. You can conquer a land. You can build churches, rename rivers, plant flags on mountaintops. But the blood remembers. When scientists map Filipino DNA today, they find something astonishing. Less than 1% shows any sign of Spanish or European ancestry. How is that possible? How did a people subjected to centuries of foreign rule manage to keep their genetic soul almost untouched? Imagine the strength it takes, not just to survive conquest, but to remain yourself underneath it. While the Spanish built cathedrals and forts, the people of the islands continued to marry among their own, to pass down not just languages and legends, but the invisible code written into their very bones. It wasn't just rebellion in the streets. It was rebellion in every generation that chose to remember who they were. Have you ever wondered what it really means to resist? Is it only battles and banners? Or is true resistance the quiet, stubborn act of refusing to let your past be erased? Even today, when geneticists analyze Filipino genomes, they find the old signatures still glowing. The deep pulse of Austronesian ancestors, the traces of ancient Negrito blood, the quiet breath of Papuan and Asian travelers. But almost no Spanish. Not because the Spanish didn't try, but because the islands, the people, refused to be rewritten. There are whispers, yes. A few traces of Iberian lineages in places like Cebu, Luzon, and parts of the Visayas. But even there, they are like tiny ripples against the vast ocean of indigenous ancestry. The true heart of the Filipino genome beats not with the rhythm of conquest, but with the ancient songs of its first voyagers and island dreamers. What does it mean to win against an empire? Maybe it's not just about driving them away. Maybe it's about enduring, quietly, fiercely, without losing the faces, the stories, the bloodlines that make you who you are. The Philippines today stands as proof that survival is not surrender. It is memory carried forward. It is identity, woven through centuries of storms. It is the blood itself, whispering, "I was here before you came. I will be here long after you are gone." And that story, the one the conquerors could never erase, still flows in every heartbeat of the islands today. Beneath the endless skies and restless seas, the Philippines isn't just a country. It's a constellation of memories, scattered across more than 7,000 islands. Each island tells a different story. Each valley, each river, each mountain carries whispers of ancestors whose names have been forgotten, but whose legacies live on, not in stone, but in blood. Today, when scientists look into Filipino DNA, they don't find a single narrative. They find a tapestry, a patchwork of ancient lineages held apart by geography, by history, by stubborn, beautiful isolation. Imagine growing up on a tiny island where the ocean is both your cradle and your cage, where your world stretches only as far as the next beach, and every family holds secrets older than memory itself. What stories would you carry? Across the Philippines, more than 170 ethnolinguistic groups guard their own threads of the ancient story. Negrito peoples, hidden deep in the forests. Cordilleran Highlanders, carving out lives in the misty mountains. Sama Sea nomads, drifting on the waves with the tide as their guide. Each one a living archive of migrations long past, of forgotten meetings and departures, of silent survival. And when scientists study them, they find something extraordinary. Some Negrito groups carry gene patterns closer to ancient Papuans. Some Cordilleran tribes preserve one of the purest Austronesian signatures in the world. Others, like the Sama Dialot, hold traces of South Asian voyages few even remember. Is it any wonder the Philippines became a natural laboratory of human diversity? Have you ever thought about how isolation can sometimes preserve what the world forgets? Where empires crumble and languages die, isolated peoples keep singing the old songs. They keep living the old lives. They keep carrying the memories the rest of the world lost along the way. In the dense forests of Luzon, in the limestone caves of Palawan, in the drifting boats off Mindanao shores, human history has been bottled like ancient light, still shining if you know where to look. The Philippines is not just a melting pot. It's a living museum, and every island is a different wing of that museum. What we call Filipino today is not one thing. It is thousands of different dreams, stitched together by centuries of isolation, survival, and silent connection. Every face, every family, every village holds a piece of the great story. And the beauty of it is that no single piece tells the whole tale. You have to listen to all of them, to the laughter and the silences, to the dances and the absences, to begin to understand. The islands of the Philippines are not just places. They are memories you can walk on, sail to, live inside. And every heartbeat, every breath, carries the songs of those who came before, songs still echoing across the waves, waiting for those who know how to hear. Beneath the skin, beyond the bones, there lies a map not drawn with ink, but written in the secret language of life itself. Filipino DNA is not just a reflection of an island nation. It is a mirror held up to the oldest journeys of humanity, and a reminder that history does not travel in straight lines. When scientists unlocked the genetic code of the Filipino people, they didn't just find one migration story. They found many, layered like the waves that shape the shores, interwoven like the roots of an ancient banyan tree. Have you ever thought about how your own blood might carry memories from a world no longer visible? In Filipino DNA, we find the footprints of explorers who sailed before the stars had names, of Negrito ancestors who crossed vanished lands, of Austronesian dreamers who chased horizons across the open sea. We find whispers of Denisovan ancestors, a connection to lost branches of the human family that left behind no cities, no empires, only traces inside us, where no conqueror could erase them. Filipino genetics shatter the old myths that cultures are pure, isolated, untouched. Instead, the bloodlines reveal a truth far more beautiful, that humanity thrives in the blending, in the crossings, in the endless reaching across rivers and oceans toward the unknown. What does it say about us, that inside every Filipino, there are echoes of so many journeys, from the highlands of Taiwan to the jungles of Papua, from the markets of South Asia to the drifting sailboats of Polynesia? It says that identity is not a wall. It is a bridge. Every mutation, every haplogroup, every ancient lineage preserved in the islands of the Philippines is a thread in the greater tapestry of human survival. When you stand in a crowd in Manila, or hear the drums beat in Mindanao, or watch the sun rise over the Cordillera Mountains, you are witnessing one of the rarest miracles on Earth, a living archive of humanity's oldest experiments in exploration, endurance, and adaptation. Few places on this planet hold such a rich, tangled, and ancient genetic story in so small a space. Few peoples carry within them so many firsts, the first navigators, the first climbers, the first dreamers of distant lands. And yet, most of the world still sees only the surface. They miss the extraordinary truth lying just beneath. Have you ever asked yourself, what ancient footsteps walk with you, invisible every day? Filipino DNA answers that question not with a single voice, but with a chorus. Voices from 1,000 ancestors, across 1,000 forgotten migrations, singing together in the blood. In the Philippines, we don't just find evidence of where humanity has been. We glimpse where it can go, toward a future where diversity isn't an accident, but a strength. The story written in Filipino blood is not just about survival. It's about resilience. It's about dreaming beyond the horizon. And most of all, it's a reminder that long before nations rose and borders were drawn, we were already travelers, already storytellers, already family. The Philippines teaches us this truth, that we are all, in the end, islands of memory, carried across oceans of time.